Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing well. Welcome to the second lecture of the Mastering Yourself series. During this lecture, the topic of discussion is becoming self-aware. Why is becoming self-aware crucial for success? Without self-awareness, you are unable to reason why you are behaving the way that you are behaving. This means that you do not have a clear understanding of why you're doing what you're doing within the markets. This means that your results are influenced by factors that you simply do not know or understand yet. You can already see why becoming self aware is so important, because if we do not understand all the factors that are influencing our own performance, how could we ever look to improve then? That is why we're going to focus on becoming more self aware during this lecture and during this whole series. During this lecture, I will provide to you tips that you can apply in order to become more self aware of the things that are influencing your own behavior throughout the day behind the charts. Becoming self aware is a result of journaling experiences. This is why achieving consistency in trading takes a lot of time, because you need to go through a lot of experiences in order to see and journal how you react to those events. We all go through ups and downs, and how you choose to react to those ups and downs is eventually the determining factor whether or not you will achieve the consistency that you're looking for. Therefore, you need to understand how you react when things are going well and how you react when things are going bad. You need to go through experiences and learn from them. That is the most important part of this whole journey. Meaning, we go through experiences in order to become better and in order to learn. The moment that you change your mindset from I'm going through these experiences and these experiences suck to okay, I'm going through these experiences in order to become a better trader, immediately you will have a growth mindset. And that's very important to note. I want you to understand that hardships are often blessings in disguise. And let me explain what I mean by that statement. When we go through hard times, when we experience hardships in our lives, we often try to run away from that pain. We often try to ignore like something did not occur, or someone didn't say that to you, or that you didn't get into that argument, or whatever it may be that caused the hardship. During this moment, something is being taught to you, meaning when you look back at what occurred, you're able to look back at what happened and you're able to say, okay, I now understand why I had to go through this back then. In the moment, it might be too painful to look at the experience, but when you look back at the experience after it occurred, you'll be able to learn from it. And that is why I mentioned that a hardship is often a blessing in disguise. It doesn't matter what hardship it is, because there's always something to be learned from that experience. And that is what I want you to note. Journaling. Journaling is the logging of experiences with the goal in mind to learn from these experiences. Journaling is different than the logging of market opportunities. And throughout this lecture, I will share with you tips on how I would advise you to journal. During this lecture series, we are going to discuss many different psychological hurdles that you could walk into. But if you do not understand why you are behaving the way that you're behaving in the first place behind the charts, you don't even know what's holding you back. And therefore, you need to begin journaling if you're not journaling yet. And take the time for it, because journaling is very important. And I know people like to say, it doesn't really matter. I'm too good for this. My results are too good. I shouldn't be looking over my shoulder and looking at why I'm doing this and that. The moment that the tide turns and the moment that something goes off, you will have your journal to reflect upon and to look back at. And your journal is your best friend. When journaling, it is crucial that you try to be as open as possible when it comes to writing down everything that you did or thought, which eventually led to you deciding in the marketplace. That means that when you write down in your journal that you took a trade today, it doesn't mean that you just write down, okay, look, I bought the Nasdaq, this was the price level I bought off, and this was my target, this was my stop loss, etc. No, it goes way deeper than that. You literally need to write down for yourself, okay, what was my mind thinking about prior to opening the charts? Was I in a good emotional state, or was I in a bad emotional state? Was I angry about something? Was I upset with someone? Was I calm? Was I relaxed? All these things, they influence your own decision making process. But if you do not journal them, you never become aware of those things. Then you look at, okay, what was the overall analysis behind the trade? What was I anticipating? Where was my entry? Where was my stop loss? Where was my target? Etc. And that is the technical side of things. But I want you to begin paying more attention to the psychological side of things. Let's take a look at some journal examples. We're going to take a look at Trader 1, his hypothetical journal note. Today I came home from work and I recognized we had not reached the previous week high yet, which was my draw liquidity for the day on Euro. A bullish breaker formed and I went market long. The market then took me out right away and attacked my stop loss. When I then looked at GU, I saw that GU already took out the previous week's high and began to show the signatures of bearish order flow stepping in. Man, I'm so stupid that I did not see this. How could I have not seen that? I'm a failure. Now compare this journal note to the following journal note. We're now going to take a look at Trader 2 is hypothetical journal note number 1. Today I was anticipating higher prices for Euro and the GU. That is what my pre-market analysis suggested. I was anticipating the previous week's high to be the draw on liquidity. During the London session, I saw the market take out the Asia low and then I saw SMT with GU taking place. The market began to displace towards the upside and I saw bullish order flow stepping in. I was now looking for a long opportunity during the New York session. I was however not at home yet. I was still at work. Whilst at work, I could not think about anything else than that opportunity which was presenting itself on Euro. I had to rush home to make the New York session. It felt like my life depended on it. And I know that some of you are probably listening to this lecture right now and you're smiling because you know that you experienced the same in the past, where you knew an opportunity was presenting itself and you were at work or something along those lines, you were not behind the charts, and the only thing you could think about was that opportunity which was presenting itself. I got behind the charts and I did not really check if something about my underlying analysis changed. I saw a bullish breaker present itself and I opened my long position. When opening the position, I felt my heartbeat rising and I began sweating. Something fell off. The market then went towards my stop loss and I got taken out. When I then took the time to look at if something changed about my underlying analysis, I recognized that GU already took out the previous week's high and that the signatures of bearish order flow began stepping in on both GU as Euro. The lesson to be learned is that when getting behind the charts, I need to make sure that I am not rushing into positions and that I take the time to properly analyze the markets to see if your initial idea is still valid or not. Recognize the difference in journaling? Trader 1 journals everything in a short negative manner, whilst Trader 2 pays attention to all the fine details which eventually led to him taking that trade. Trader 1 does not come to a lesson to be learned from the negative experience, whilst Trader 2 comes to one solid lesson to be learned from the trade which he can implement moving forward. Let's take a look at another hypothetical journal note by Trader 1. It's Monday and there was no high impact news scheduled for the day. I did not have a clear one-sided draw liquidity going into the session. I recognized the signs of chop potentially arriving due to SMT on both sides of the marketplace, and I still looked to trade inside of this high resistance liquidity run environment. I took 3 low probability trades resulting in 3 losses. The lesson to be learned is that when the analyst signals that an environment is low probability, I do not trade. Secondly, when I take a loss for the session, I need to stop and I need to reassess. What I want you to notice is that this trader only journals what he did within the markets, meaning it's a very technical journal. He mentions what occurred and he learns from that, meaning he says, okay, when the analyst signals that an environment is low probability, I do not trade. Sure, we all know that. But why did he still take those trades inside of that low probability environment, even though he knows that he shouldn't push it in that environment? There's a reason for that. There's something inside of his mind, inside of his thought process, which caused him to behave this way. And that is why such a journal note is, in my opinion, not extensive enough. You need to change this journal note into the following manner. What has to be added is that you focus more on how you felt, how you behaved throughout the day in advance of that session, whether or not there was something on your mind which you were thinking about, whether or not you were just in an argument with someone, whether or not you are upset. All these things, yes, they influence your decision making process behind the charts. And when you do not journal them, you never become aware of them. And that is what I'm trying to share with you during this lecture. Journaling the technicals is not enough. You need to journal your mind. You need to journal how you're thinking. How are you thinking about the marketplace today? Are you overly obsessed about something going to happen? Or are you reading the market for what it is? You need to understand that we as humans, we project onto the charts. We project our inner feelings or emotions onto the charts. And that can be a good thing, but can also be a bad thing. And our job is to recognize when we are likely going to behave well and when we are likely going to not behave well. And if you recognize that you engage in low probability environments, I want to ask you to think about why are you doing that? And if the answer to that question is not clear to you right away, it means that you need to investigate more when it comes to what is going on in my personal life and how is this influencing me. If we take a look on the second trader's hypothetical journal note, we can see the following. It's Monday and I was free from work because I used some of my vacation days to take this week off. I finally had time to look at the markets. I saw a bullish fair value gap form and what seemed to be displacement higher, so I went market long inside the fair value gap. The market stopped me out but then began to displace higher again. I re-entered inside of the next fair value gap which formed and I got stopped out again. Man, trading is not for me. I'm such a bad trader. My co-workers were right saying that this shit does not work. Now, what I want you to see right away when looking at this journal note is the following. First of all, it's a very negative journal note. You can see that the conclusion that this trader arrives at is that trading is not for him. He's such a bad trader. Maybe his co-workers or his peers were in fact right about trading not working. All of this stuff is negative. What I want you to see is that this trader went behind the charts on a Monday, not because the market signaled to him that something was likely going to happen, but because he was free from work, because he had the time to sit behind the charts. And let me tell you something. The market operates based on its own schedule. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about how you're thinking about the marketplace for that moment. No, the market is going to do what it's going to do, what it's programmed to do. And you're either on side or you fight it. And when you decide to fight it, you're of course on the wrong path. Because you need to understand that if you are free from work and if you have the opportunity to trade, it doesn't mean that there is an opportunity to trade. Okay? Journal that. Write that down for yourself. It's not that you are able behind the chart, so therefore you should take a trade now. No. When you are able to sit behind the charts, you look at whether or not the market is signaling to you that there is an opportunity. And that is what I want you to take away from this journal note. This trader does not come to a lesson to be learned from this journal note. Instead, he ends it on a negative manner. I want to ask you, do you recognize the difference in journaling between trader 1 and trader 2? Even though trader 1, his journal note was not complete in my opinion, like I mentioned, trader 2, his journal note was very negative. Why? Because there was a negative conclusion to it and there was no lesson to be learned from the experience. Let me share with you what has to be included in your journal entry. First of all, I want you to note down how you felt prior to getting behind the charts. Secondly, your thought process for the session has to be journaled, meaning what were you anticipating for the session, what were you looking for. Thirdly, your trade execution with the management applied has to be logged. And fourthly, you need to take away a lesson that can be learned from the experience, no matter the outcome. It can be a win, it can be a loss, it can be a break even, doesn't matter. There's always a lesson to be learned from each execution. I promise you that if you begin journaling like this, over time you will become more self-aware of the things that are influencing your own decision-making process behind the charts. You need to journal with one goal in mind, and that is improving, becoming better. You cannot dwell on past experiences, meaning don't beat yourself up for negative experiences that you had inside the marketplace. You need to dig deeper and try to figure out for yourself, why did you experience that negative experience? Did you follow all of your rules? If you did, then it's a good loss. If you didn't, then it means that you allowed for something to be projected onto the marketplace and you are responsible for that. And when you accept that you are the person who is always in charge and who is responsible for all of his actions, you can grow and you can get better. But you cannot get better if you constantly dwell on those past experiences. By journaling, we learn from past experiences to improve our own ability to perform moving forward. Meaning, we only journal with one goal in mind, and that is to improve. Your journal is your best friend. You never speak negative to yourself in your journal. You always journal in a way that's likely going to make you get better and learn from the experience. Once you have enough experiences to reflect upon, the fun begins. And let me explain what I mean by the fun begins. Now you need to begin changing habits to avoid reliving the experiences which you deem to be negative in the past. Meaning, if you're seeing that you're constantly making the same mistakes that lead to you having negative experiences behind the charts, meaning taking unrequired losses, you need to put systems in place which will allow you to avoid reliving those experiences. And this is what changing habits mean. You change habits by becoming aware of the issue and then by putting systems in place that will allow you to deal with that habit which is not helping you get any further. And then over time, that new system which you put into place becomes the natural habit. And this is something we'll discuss later during this series more in depth. The process of changing habits takes time. It won't happen overnight, but with enough patience, you will eventually arrive at a state of mind which allows you to make better decisions. That is what you need to keep in mind no matter what. The next lecture will be personal life and its influence on your trading. I want to thank you for watching this lecture all the way to the end and look forward to catching up with you during the next one. Please begin journaling properly.